This thing is working with this, just so.
All right, so are we live? So with
Yes.
that, we are Joint Aid in Progress, the Special Education Support Services and Wellness Committee of the Carmel Central School District. We had no public comment and we are, and could you prop that open? Because it does need to be accessible. And with that, and we are joined
Wherever
by
you're comfortable.
Trustee Douglas.
No one's sitting there, so.
So now we will begin with an overview of the monthly tier system of support to the Carmel Central School District. So Dr. Kennedy, over to you.
Okay, great, thank you so much for this opportunity. So looking forward to sharing about what MTS is, what it looks like in Carmel, and where we're at with the goals that we set for MTSS this year, areas of progress, and also areas that we've identified that are in need of continued work. The one thing I will say first and foremost regarding MTSS, and Dr. Bourne will come in and join me, is that it's a constantly evolving process. It's work that's never done, and it's a constant cycle of implementation of interventions, and then monitoring, assessing, and then revisiting and evolving just across the board, whether it's individual interventions or as a whole system, trying to figure out how to always improve. So it's an area that we've always been working on and we'll always need to continue to work on. But it's definitely an area of focus for this year. So consistent with our district mission and vision, this presentation will be grounded in our district's core competencies of critical thinking, collaboration, communication, citizenship, creativity, and compassion. MTSS is one of the key structures that allows us to intentionally bring these competencies to life for all students through academics, behavior, and social emotional development. So for today's agenda, what we're going to do is, as I mentioned, discuss an overview of MTSS, what our goals are, progress, what next steps we've identified, and welcome all input as to any thoughts that the community has or the board has about ways to improve it moving forward. So, all right. We'll review the MTSS framework and current supports as part of our review where we're at with the goals. So, let me go on to the next slide. So I'm not going to read this whole slide, but this is the technical New York State definition of MTSS, which stands for the multi-tiered systems of support. In summary, MTSS is a school-wide data-driven framework designed to support the academic, behavioral, social, emotional, and wellness needs of students. It's not a single program, it's an organizational structure that helps schools deliver the right level of support at the right time for students. NYSED describes MTSS as an integrated continuous improvement framework, and we often describe it as the operating system that organizes how supports are delivered across the district. Next slide. So in a nutshell, in simple terms, it helps to ensure that every student receives strong instruction and support, connects instruction, intervention, and problem solving across departments rather than in silos. The goal is equity and access, ensuring students receive what they need before challenges become more significant. Okay. And this visual depicts the main key components of what a quality MTSS structure includes. MTSS rests on several foundational components. These include collaboration, family and community engagement, professional learning, and universal design for learning. Also RTI, that's response for intervention, positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS, and social emotional learning, SEL. And these are not separate initiatives. They function together under the MTSS umbrella. Also importantly, there's universal design for learning, UDL. There's a lot of acronyms in this presentation, just a heads up, which ensures instruction is designed from the start to meet diverse learner needs, reducing the need for later intervention. Next slide. All right, so just to give an overview of RTI, and this is where I asked Dr. Gorman to speak a little bit later on. It really applies to the academic side of MTSS life. So RTI focuses on academic instruction intervention. Tier 1 represents high quality core instruction for all students. Tier 2 provides targeted small group support. Tier 3 delivers intensive individualized intervention. Student progress is monitored regularly to determine whether supports are effective and adjusted as needed. Next slide. PBIS This aspect of the structure supports positive behavior, attendance, and school climate. Tier 1 establishes clear expectations and consistent routines for all students. Tier 2 provides additional supports for students who need them. Tier 3 offers individualized, often collaborative supports for students with more significant needs. Behavioral and attendance data guide decision-making just as academic data does. All right, SEL. SEL focuses on building skills such as self-management, relationship building, and responsible decision-making. SEL instruction occurs within regular classroom instruction and aligns with academic and behavioral supports. It's important to note that SEL is not the same as therapy. Sometimes they are confused, but SEL is a general school-wide and also classroom, usually wide approach. It's an educational approach that supports students' readiness to learn. Tiered SEL supports allow us to respond proactively to student needs while understanding the whole child. All right, next one. And so this is another visual that depicts how these different areas come together and how the academics, behavior, and social emotional experiences of our students are interconnected. The tiered structure ensures universal supports for all students, targeted supports for some, and intensive supports for a few. MTSS allows us to respond holistically rather than reactively. All right, so here's an overview of the goals that we established at the start of the year. And as I mentioned earlier, we're always looking to improve. MTSS is something that requires constant reflection and planning for future goals. But for this year, what we decided to focus on was 1, developing a shared vision for MTSS practices district-wide, establishing district-wide practices and expectations to sustain efforts and build capacity over time, to enhance instruction and improve outcomes for our students who are learning English as a new language, our students with individual education plans, and to ensure that this is all aligned with our district comprehensive improvement plan, which is the plan that focuses on addressing, in particular, the progress of students, E&L students at George Fisher, and also students with IEPs at Matthew Patterson. So while those 2 schools are receiving targeted support because of past data that indicated need for that, we are also keeping that in mind as we approach the whole district to support achievement for all of our students across the grade levels. And also, our third goal is to implement proactive behavioral supports to reduce incidents that lead to discipline. And 4, implement SEL programs, including everyday speech and second step. So these 4 goals focus on consistency, capacity building, and student outcomes. They align with our district mission and vision and reflect both academic and social emotional priorities. A key emphasis is building sustainable systems rather than short-term initiatives. Okay, so with respect to the progress that we believe that we've made towards goal 1, this began in August when we had a meeting of our consultant through the New York State Education Department. I can mention that what happened a couple of years ago was the district applied to be a pilot school, a pilot district for MTSS support through the Office of, basically the New York State Education Department. And so since then, we've had a consultant who comes to us, he's associated with the University of Albany, and comes to us and meets with our teams to try to discuss where we're at, where the building level teams are at, what types of assessments are being used, and overall progress. So we're in the 3rd year of that grant. It will conclude at the end of this year, so we're trying to maximize the time that we have between now and then. A part of the that overall project will include us developing a very comprehensive written plan for MTSS that I anticipate will be complete by the end of the year. It'll basically be like a volume of information on specific interventions at each grade level according to the tiers and the district's plan for moving forward. At our administrative retreat in late August, we also discussed how this will be a major focus this year, MTSS. Throughout the fall, we also, in conjunction with Dr. Gorman, really focus on the district-wide implementation of the Branching Minds platform. That is a student data system, not the same as Synergy, but it is a student data system that allows for us to take a close look at benchmarking data for students and see where they fall in terms of level of intervention needed, level of follow-up and monitoring. And it also is a very useful tool because it provides intervention ideas. It connects with various apps, and it also has a social emotional learning component. So there's a couple of things with that really help when it comes to progress monitoring, early warning indicators for behavior, attendance, and grades, and helping us to evaluate data, not just for individual students, but also for classes and for whole grade levels. So we can see if a whole class or a whole group of students are making progress or if there's any struggles there. Maybe we can talk more about that in just a little bit. I'll just go through the rest of what we have for goal 1. So next slide. So we feel that we've made progress with building consistency throughout the district with these school teams. So in the past, the standing members of the team were likely different, or they were definitely different across the different buildings, but there's been more consistency this year than in the past in that the MTSS teams, the standing members are an administrator, the psychologist, and often the social worker too, teachers, general education teachers usually, but also if a student is receiving something like RTI support in a subject, that teacher will come in, or if they are receiving any other sort of specialist support, then that person will be brought into the multidisciplinary conversation as well. While we still have a way to go, we do feel that there has been some more operational consistency with relying on the regularly scheduling meetings and also fully adopting the Branching Minds platform. Dr. Gorman will talk more about this in the superintendent's report, but we feel that our progress with Branching Minds is a big win because the district has had it throughout the last few years, but it was only used in certain schools and with certain pockets of people who were more comfortable with it than others. One of the things that we did this year to really try to build our capacity with that was we purchased individual student licenses for every student in the district. So now when one goes into Branching Minds, there is the option to assess data and progress for all students. That's for me and Dr. Gorman. But obviously when it comes to the buildings, they just are able to access their own students, but we at least are able to monitor progress of all students and not just some, which is what used to be the case when we didn't have the option to use it for all of our kids. So again, the Branching Minds platform helps with early warning indicators to help cue the teams on things to look out for with receptive behavior or attendance and grades. And again, although we never want to see MTSS as a path to special education because it is a general education initiative and it's intended to enhance supports for all students, when a team is looking at referring a student to the CSE, there is a lot of information thanks to this process that can back that up. So that's also very helpful. If and when a student goes to the CSE has a variety of information to review and help inform the decision making at that level. So we'll hear more about that in the superintendent's report. And then with respect to growth areas, as I mentioned, this is a constantly evolving process and we cannot ever say that we're done. So something that we're really focusing on is building coherence. I would say that that's the biggest priority. I don't think it's possible to achieve complete 100% coherence K through 12 because it looks so different across the different grade levels, elementary to secondary, but we are trying to build more coherence with the process and interventions, what those look like, how students move through the tiers, and making sure that supports are provided equitably to all students regardless of their building. And along those lines, seamless transitions, vertical alignment between the grade levels and buildings to ensure that a student's data, interventions, and progress follow them. So if a student is going from one of our elementary schools to the middle school, we want to make sure that the information is easily handed off to the middle school team. That way their transition is supported and the team is set up for success to help the student as they enter middle school. So also in that area, we are really focusing a lot on our continued professional development for all of our staff. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But one of the areas that we've heard from all of our buildings is that one common area that is identified as a need that people are asking for support with is with teaching executive functioning. So that applies to so many different areas. There's always instructional implications for executive functioning, but it also impacts one's social emotional experience. And so across the different levels, helping our staff learn how to teach and become more skilled at teaching how to learn skills such as organization, focus, and self-regulation. That is a key area that we would like to continue to really expand upon. And also equitable service delivery. This is something I'll discuss further later in the presentation, but an area that we're really looking at right now and evaluating is how MTSS related services look throughout the district. Our related service providers, speech therapists, occupational therapists, the counseling staff, our psychologists and social workers, they're mandated to provide IEP and 504 counseling support. So that is their main focus when they develop their schedules. Some of our providers have a little bit more time than others to provide what we call non-mandated support. So although it might not be mandated, we all know that it still matters. So that's something that we're taking a close look at. We're working with our related service providers and the department chair to make sure that schedules are maximized, first meet the mandates, of course, but then also to have time to maximize the supports that are there to help prevent the students from having more and more difficulties. What we find is that sometimes students might just need 10 weeks of speech and they're good to go. Not everybody, but that can happen. And it's in a proper MTSS structure, we're able to deliver that and not necessarily have to go to a CSE or a 504 referral to pursue mandating that service. So it always depends, but there is a huge benefit to being able to provide these services at the tier 1 and also the tier 2 and sometimes tier 3 level. But again, that's something that requires a lot of strategizing with us, the service providers and the buildings, to make sure that it's available to our students and also provided equitably, because we don't want a situation where one building is able to receive that and other buildings are not. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so with respect to goal 2, I'll give Dr. Gorman a lot of credit here. We, with Dr. Gorman's support, launched the first dual language program at Kent Primary School and Matthew Patterson Elementary School. Sea Valley was also of amazing support with this as well. And I think that we're really going to see the fruits of that labor for years to come. Students have already shown progress through benchmark literacy data from the fall to winter assessments. The district also hired a bilingual RTI teacher at the elementary level to support literacy and math for our ENL students through classroom and small group instruction. Additionally, 2 grant-funded bilingual teaching assistants to strengthen ENL instruction have been provided. And overall, another area that has become more consistent than it was in the past is the inclusion of ENL teachers in MTSS and CSE meetings whenever these meetings apply to an ENL student. Next slide. Other areas of progress here we feel are providing ongoing professional learning that focuses on differentiated instruction and inclusive practices, especially at Matthew Patterson. Through the school improvement grant that we have through New York State, we've been able to partner with a consulting group that supports administrators and teachers in developing the integrated co-teaching teacher relationships and the quality of instruction in those classrooms. There is a lot of training, planning, and coaching happening. We are focusing a lot on trying to strengthen understanding and use of the 6 co-teaching models. Building shared understanding across the district around inclusive practices and structures that support all learners. and overall really trying to build our capacity with designing inclusive grade level lessons, using differentiation, universal design for learning, and specially designed instruction. So areas of growth that we're also focused on here is expanding the structured ongoing professional learning. So we're fortunate to have the grant at Matthew Patterson and to be able to provide that structured support with the consulting group that we have, but we definitely want those same professional development opportunities to be provided throughout the district as well, especially at the secondary level. We would like to continue to support our administrators and teachers with building strong integrated co-teaching classrooms through training, planning, and coaching. And again, this is also where the use of Branching Minds platform will come in. It will continue to help inform MTSS committee decision-making and help the teams to identify the areas that they need to focus on instructionally and overall come up with more intervention ideas there. Another area I'll mention that there's been progress with this year as far as the shared collaboration is that at Matthew Patterson, anytime there is a meeting, a problem-solving meeting, an MTSS meeting on students who have one-to-one aids, the TA or the one-to-one CISA has been part of the professional learning provided.
That's a huge support.
Really happy that they did that. Yeah, so that way it's not a situation where the teacher is turnkeying information. That person who's directly supporting the student is directly receiving the information and the opportunity to learn from the consultant. So goal 3, our focus has been on prevention, consistency, and early intervention. Behavioral data is being reviewed regularly to guide adjustments and reduce disciplinary incidents. We are doing this through really focusing on collaboration and capacity building. Again, across the grade levels, our psychologists and social workers are involved with the MTSS meetings. We also, this year, in conjunction with Putnam County Department of Children's Mental Health, have been providing a multi-day series in youth mental health first aid training for monitors. We also, through our partnership with PNW BOCES, have been able to provide access to Northwell Health's professional development and consultation opportunities for our clinical and guidance staff. We are also focusing a lot on trying to collaborate more and provide training for transportation staff to build capacity with supporting students who need support on the bus. And at least once a month, I think it's more often than that, but I don't want to misspeak, but at least once a month, our satellite mental health clinician is meeting with the Carmel High School clinicians, admin, and guidance staff to talk about students who might potentially need to be referred for that service. All right, and other areas of progress here. We do have structured PBIS teams at each building. There is use of the check-in and check-out system, both formally and informally, to connect at-risk students with supportive staff members. And this is where I feel that all the buildings have been doing an amazing job with something special and unique to each building. But again, I think we want to look at this as we look at trying to build coherence moving forward. Each building has something a little bit different. So there's definitely a focus on kindness and inclusion that I would say is everywhere, especially at the elementary levels. At Matthew Patterson, they have a Mix It Up at Lunch Day. There is the Buddy program at Kent Elementary. There are class presentations on mental health and mindfulness at George Fisher. And at the high school, our clinicians have facilitated a mental health awareness fair. There's also the Youth Coalition. And these are just some examples, but wanted to highlight those as part of our progress with Goal 3. And areas of growth here. So we feel that we definitely need to continue to monitor the disciplinary data, especially across the subgroups. The administrators have looked at it as a group. We looked at it as a group here. We would love to bring those conversations out more to the larger school community to make sure that everyone has the same information and everyone is informed. And also We're working to build consistency with the approaches to PBIS across the grade levels. We're focused on increasing collaboration time between buildings to support coherence and vertical alignment. And especially when it comes to our transportation staff, we are really focusing a lot on our collaboration between the buildings, our department PPS, and our transportation staff who are supporting our students. And overall, strategizing initiatives for future support and professional development to instructional and non-instructional staff on proactive strategies and also restorative approaches. Okay, so with respect to goal 4, which was to implement SEL programs, including everyday speech and second step, I'm happy to share that since the September meeting, I think is where we talked about everyday speech, all staff in all the buildings have been trained. There's a link to the training schedule that confirms that there. And the program is available district-wide to all clinicians and teachers. This was kind of similar to Branching Minds, a program that was used in some buildings, in some pockets throughout the district, but this year we were able to get licenses for all of the buildings. So that way all of the teachers and clinicians have access to it. At quick glance at everyday speech, one might think that it applies more to the elementary level, but it does go K through 12. And there are a lot of resources on there that can support just overall social emotional learning and development at the secondary level. In conversation with Mr. Piazza, we discussed how when the high school moves towards an advisory, this will be a useful resource for teachers in the advisory periods. And then with respect to second step, this is a more targeted program than everyday speech. Everyday speech can be used for all students through tier 1. It can also be used in smaller group supports via tier 2 or tier 3. But second step is usually a little bit more either classroom specific or else via small groups. So far we're working on ways to try to expand that more, but right now it's in place at Matthew Patterson in the 2nd grade. And also the middle school's A school. The new counselor that we have there is very well versed in the program and has hit the ground running with using it with the students that she sees. But we are working on expanding it throughout the grade levels and across the buildings. Okay, so again, I already went over this a little bit, but just some highlights of everyday speech. It's very versatile. It also helps with identification. So by engaging students in the activities that are part of this program, educators are able to keep a closer eye on students and be able to tell when perhaps further support is needed. And also it's very practical. The lessons are ready to use. They have handouts, they have student activities, short videos, things like that, that make it pretty easy and also engaging. So second step, as I mentioned, it's more of a targeted program, and these are the areas that it is currently implemented. It also has benefits with helping to understand if a student requires more support beyond what is offered through the program itself. Navigate 360 is another program. Now this is really only used in the counseling group, so it's not a whole school or advisory type program like everyday speeches. And I would say that it's more targeted than second step as well. So we do have some of our clinicians using Navigate 360 in their counseling groups. This curriculum helps to focus on proactive skill building with real world application, helping with emotional regulation, responsible decision making, effective communication. Also, all of these programs are beneficial in that they can support with early identification and intervention if a student needs more support. So strengthening our MTSS related services is, as I mentioned at the beginning, one area that we're really trying to focus on right now. We want to make sure that all the mandated services are in place, that they are being honored and effectively provided. We also want to make sure that there is an emphasis on preventative support. So that's something that, as an administrative group, we're really trying to home. And as that's part of the overall effort to be more proactive instead of reactive. And also, in the case, as I mentioned earlier, we don't want anyone to feel like they have to go to a CSE referral in order to get some level of related service. Of course, if it's necessary, we're more than happy to accommodate, but we want to be able to provide services just to have that as an option for our students. So here are some success stories of our students. So like Matthew Patterson, they mentioned how they've integrated a Winner's Way group, sensory output, physical education sessions. In other buildings, elementary buildings, we have high impact morning movement and discrete skill groups like shoe tying that our occupational therapists are supporting as well. So one more visual to show how the MTSS structure is an ongoing evolving process. Next steps, we are continuing to support full consistent implementation of the Branching Minds platform. Something that Dr. Gorman and I are putting into place starting next month, which is in a week, is recurring data meetings with the principals, in which we'll go over the academic information available to us and review trends, as well as also ongoing review of disciplinary trends and data. We'll also be reviewing the CSE referral data and at the end of the year, and also all along the way, adding to all the areas I've mentioned so far to finalize a comprehensive district MTSSI plan. That way it is in writing, and while it will eventually need to be updated, it will be documented for the public to view. And overall, always reflecting and planning for the future to build coherence. But again, I would say that coherence is probably the biggest focus at this time, and something that we have heard a lot in our meetings with the consultant from New York State is that the transitions that have occurred with leadership in the district has made it difficult for this to fully launch. And so that is something that we're really trying to, again, with the coherence piece, we're really trying to move forward as a group and help make sure that everybody's as a team working to support our students. So, okay. And let's see anything else. So on that note, we have some time for questions.
Yeah, so I have one question, and then we'll go to the other members of the board, and we'll be open for public comment at the end, public questions as well. One of the main questions I had, we've consistently heard reports that different buildings have different levels of support, even for students with very similar needs. Sometimes this is addressed on an IB level by moving students from building to building, which is obviously a very relatively heavy-handed solution. But often these are cases that are just missed, where there are related supports that might be preventative, but they're stronger at one building than another. In fact, we saw the state get involved with the targeted improvement plan at Matthew Patterson for things that were being missed that weren't necessarily the case of the other buildings. What are we doing to sort of make the story more similar between buildings, to make sure we have the same related services, the same supports between buildings, and just that there's a similar level of knowledge in what we can do, knowing what to do between buildings?
So that's where the district-wide MTSS team is coming into play to make sure that there's voices from each of the buildings and that everyone is aware of what is similar and different throughout. And I would say also that's where we're coming in to really take a close look at the availability of our providers, looking at how do the IEP mandates of the different buildings impact their availability to provide other services. And that is something that we're working on strategizing to make more equitable as we move forward. And I would say that definitely the district-wide leadership team for the MTSS work is definitely that's central to figuring that out. And we do have a meeting coming up in February, so I can bring that up here.
Jim, I can chime in with the subject. I think some of the things that I've seen since I've been here that haven't necessarily been in place. We have regular principal meetings now. That's all that has not been a regular practice. All of our trainings, when we look at the elementaries, are done 3 schools together. So, for example, we were looking at CKLA last week, 2 weeks ago, and I took just elementary liaisons and from each building, and then there was a lot of ahas because there was a face-to-face training that was like, we didn't even know we had a lot of these resources. So the ask was grade level trainings. So we are doing that. I reached out to the principals today with first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade from all 3 schools, all teachers. So there's not an assumption that we're going to turnkey just because we had a small group. Same thing with branching minds. A lot of feedback has been, there was initial training, but it wasn't for everybody, and they really don't know how to use the program. So that face-to-face PD is invaluable, I've seen, and so well received by everyone who do it. And we've worked really hard to get quality PD people, not just people from the company. So been highly successful, and I think those practices then will change. I do have separate meetings with just my 3 elementaries also. So we meet the principal, and the principal leadership we think is so important, obviously. And so that is the main thrust to answer your question.
Thank you. Trustee Orson?
Yeah.
Or President Orson?
Melissa's good. I don't know who, this might go to all of you, one of you, so I'm just gonna ask. So, historically, one of the issues in this district that we've had with RTI, and I love that now MTSS is really the umbrella. But I'm gonna specifically ask about RTI and SEL that has state requirements and guidelines requiring progress monitoring, especially when we're looking at tier 2s and tier 3s. I'd like to know if you could tell us how many obviously every student is going to go through an RTI tier 1 3 times a year. We're going to get data from them.
We get benchmarks
Right.
in our beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year benchmarks in literacy. and
So that's every student.
Mhm.
And out of that, do you have the data, how many students, as the second benchmark is happening soon?
So it closed and we
Yeah.
imported data. So one of the neat things that has been, I don't know, I guess it was an aha. I had some experience with branching minds before. We didn't have the data in the system. We had data, but we had to go different places. This has been like a major 3-month project with me and the data teams. And we've imported all the M-Class, all the Ames Web, the Lectura, which is the equivalent of M-Class in Spanish, behavior incidents, attendance issues, grades, NYSED grades from last year, and this is part of my presentation today. That has not been in a singular place. So when you go into the system, and I'd be happy, like maybe next month, let's go into the system of branching minds. They have a sample, so we don't use our kids. And I could show you like tiers and movement of tiers and
So that's kind of what I'm looking for as a board, because this is a place where we put a lot of money into PD, we put a lot of money into all of these software programs. So I'm kind of looking for data, just the same way we look for discipline data. Like I'd like to know what our numbers are in tier 2 and tier 3s now that we have this, and I'd like to see 2 weeks out, 4 weeks out, and 6 weeks out.
That's
because
great.
if you're looking at what so not everybody understands, but the state has very strict requirements. If in 6 weeks you're in a tier 2 or tier 3, if your intervention isn't working, you have to change your intervention. So I would really like to see what Carmel is doing.
So
I
there-
think you understand what I'm asking.
totally
for.
get
the clock.
I
Yeah.
totally get what you're saying, and that's why you're gonna love, like today's, I used the word form follows function, and that's what branching minds and MTSS is. MTSS is the function. We now have a form, or we've had a form, but that hasn't been universally used. So when last week, Steve from Albany came and Elizabeth, Dr. Kennedy, and myself, we met with the teams at the elementary teams. Just tell us what's going on, go with your principal, how's MTS going, what's going on? And we found that they weren't all really using branching minds. They have their own systems. Some are in their own spreadsheets, some are in their own drive. And that's because of the lack of coherence of this is the system we're all going to use. So
And some were using it, but they weren't aware of all the features. Yeah.
Incredible. Like I was just, as you were talking, the Navigate 360 second step and everyday speech should be listed as our SEL interventions in the program. It's so easy to just click them and use them because the reports are through the roof. But it's slow and consistent. We did 2 trainings on Branching Minds, one for all elementary grade liaisons, and then the second one for all administration, principals, assistant principals, everyone. And there were a lot of ahas because the data wasn't there and the filters are so easy to see. I could instantly bring up our ELL kids. I could instantly bring up ELO kids that are emerging, like in the SNAP, 504 kids, special education kids, tier 2 kids, tier 3. There's graphs, there's everything you need.
So let me ask you, on that level, you could say, take Melissa Orser, 3rd grade.
Yep.
Tier 2 kid.
Yep.
4 weeks out, I
Yep.
haven't made the progress, I'm going into tier 3, 6 weeks out, I still haven't made the progress, team meeting, see if I want a referral. You can actually watch that.
So incredibly, yes.
Okay.
And if you see the
Because
report.
that's really what
with-
it's for, right? It's for
yes,
that.
it's graphing
That's
and everything. And you gotta laugh, but they have an AI tool called Dottie that actually will give you suggestions.
Oh, I love
And
it.
they say, keep it on in the background while your MTSS meeting is. Of course, it's not everything, it's just suggestions. And then you look at it and you know, but it will look at the data and give you suggestions. But the whole key is exactly what you said, progress monitoring over 6 weeks. And I'll show you some of these graphs. They're spectacular. We have some teachers in isolated buildings that have used it, but it has never universally been used. So
We
that's,
should be seeing, what we
Yeah.
want to be seeing is really this, right? That's
yeah,
what we
you should see
should
the
be seeing,
triangle,
right?
they're going from, and you could actually see that in the kindergarten dual language kids from their M class. You could see the red was 70 and went to 30 from beginning year to middle year. So
If you could bring that to us in a
Yes.
month or so, just
Yeah, I
maybe
think
pick,
that's
maybe
worth
pick
looking
out,
next
you know,
week.
it, just give us the data, like how many kids in this last thing, you know, were tier 2, tier 3, and where they are a month out, so we can watch
Yeah.
the progress
and
ourselves.
I think the
Right,
most powerful thing that we're
Aggregate data, not, yeah, obviously.
the most powerful thing that we're going to do starting next month, now that we finally have all the data in and we're all becoming more comfortable with the platform, is we are literally, Michael, myself, and Liz are going to each school and we're posing it to the principals and administration. Show us your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 data, show us your early warning, show us your attendance, and let's just sit and have a conversation and a presentation from the principals to us, so we're all connected.
I love it.
And the principal leadership, I can't emphasize how important it is. It's like, it's Maslow-like, right? So
Right.
it's important to principals, it's important to the teacher, it's important to teachers, it's important to the kids. That is such a critical piece. So we want them not only supporting the program, we want them leading the program with us.
Also want them
That's
to
the case.
understand
Yeah.
what the state means by this, which is if we don't have effective scientific data proven that the child is getting better within those 6 weeks, that we have to do something different. Because
100%.
that is, I think, where we've spun our wheels for a long time, is that, A, we didn't have the data to know if they were where they were, right? We really didn't, we had anecdotal data, but we
centralized
didn't
evidence.
have what
Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be scientific, we're supposed to be scientifically making a scientific, you know, decision on what to do next,
I
so.
just went in and I brought up an intervention report and they list the interventions that we've used and they talk about the interventions are strong, research-based, moderate.
Wonderful.
But I think the theme for me is, the big picture is what gets monitored gets done. And that is, it's easier said than done, but that's the key to implementation.
And we're doing it with
Show me every 6
SEL
weeks.
also, not just RTI, correct?
Yes, that is so
Wonderful.
much more. So I'm really psyched and optimistic about this. It's like really, like a lot of buy-in, almost like cheering when we do the PDs. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
There's also the canopy case management, so for students who may be at risk for social emotional reasons, there is a feature of Branching Minds that helps the clinical teams to keep track and, you know, just basically,
You just have to use it, and we have to train people,
and
all
I,
of them.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I think that the meetings that Dr. Foreman just mentioned about us going in and meeting with the principals, that will also help with the alignment across the buildings.
Yeah.
Because we'll be able to hear directly what's happening more in one place versus the other, in addition to the district-wide leadership meetings.
Thank you so much, guys.
So yeah, let's definitely put this on the next agenda in 4 weeks. And if we have time also on that day, let's look at the adaptive gym, because I know there's been all these kind of questions about that. And with that, Trustee Douglas, do you have any questions?
No, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of this stuff. It's great.
And then, back to the public. Any questions, any comments, anything else?
I have some questions. I definitely was trying to learn how this is all working. Do we have, this might be premature at this point, but do we have any idea how many students are in tier 2 and tier 3 at this point?
Yes.
Are you able to, so, and then my
I can't,
understanding is.
yeah, I can't, I don't have.
Okay,
It depends on the area too, like some would be tier 2 with reading, but not math. So it depends, or some are both, but that, we can pull that with branching minds.
Yeah, so that would be a good thing.
Okay.
And our benchmark would be the M-Class data, which is great. And unfortunately, we didn't have the data in the beginning of the year. We had the Ames Web data, so you can't necessarily see the
They don't go.
apples to apples, but we could definitely see the triangles, the percentages, we could get all that information for you.
Yeah, best time to start would have been before the year, but the next best time is right now. So let's get this baseline and go from here.
And then are we seeing that the students that are all falling into tier 3, a large percentage of them are ultimately qualifying for an IEP, or is that something that we're kind of remediating before that happens?
We're trying to remediate whatever the deficits are, but while we do not delay CSE referrals unnecessarily, it helps, as I mentioned earlier, with the information that's needed for them. It also helps bring, some level of, integrity to the referral process. It's not like one person thinks that this child needs help, but nobody else does. It's that sort of thing that can come into play. So
I think it's important when Dr. Kennedy continues to say that MTSS and RCI is not a special ed initiative, it's a general education initiative. But, let's be real, people want to get the path to classification, maybe through intervention referrals in tier 1, but it is not a special ed program, and we have to continuously have that conversation. And what President Orsi said, I think, is really important. If we continue to progress monitor, we're just slowing down the process and seeing if really these research-based projects are working. Is this connected to skills, or is it a real learning disability? What is going on with the student? And so I think that's important to continuously clarify. Just because you're tier 3 doesn't mean you have a learning disability. It might mean you just
need a lot of
miss things, or
remediation
you
right
need
now.
different things.
Yeah, and it also helps a lot with the documentation. So meetings are getting more memorialized and centralized. So there's more of a trail of information that's available as students go along in their grades.
All right, any further questions?
Just as a comment, the anecdotal evidence that Melissa brought up before, anecdotal evidence is great, but it's not normed. So any of us observe a single incident, and we're all going to bring different anecdotal evidence from that. What this is doing is bringing a lot of normed data, which
Yep.
then allows us to say, like your question, well, how many students are in tier 2, tier 3? As was pointed out, kind of depends on the area, but then that also can drive scheduling, and it can drive the need for staffing. Is there 1 kid? Are there 15 kids? But having the normed data is priceless.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Lovely.
going into a meeting with data already. as
Normed
opposed to
data
a meeting
Versus
to
just
say
the
we need to
anecdotal.
get data.
Yeah.
What we've also, we're starting, not budget, and what we're telling teachers now is that in addition to those standardized norm data, if they have other assessments that they're using, that helps to really give a rich picture of the child profile. So that's something that hasn't necessarily been done. Like teachers do their own assessments, they don't have to wait on the benchmark data. And if they do an assessment in CKLA, they can put it in. They could, if they see things that are not happening. And then that doesn't have to be standardized for every child, but it could be as needed, and that complements the data, like you're saying. That makes the norm and the qualitative and the quantitative
Yeah.
really rich.
Well, that's the great point. This is not to dismiss anecdotal evidence at all. It is so vital, and every time we hear anyone talk about research on anecdotal evidence, doesn't matter. It sure as hell does. It definitely matters. This just is more tools in the toolbox.
Agreed.
And it'll help us tell like if various intervention programs are generally effective or not, and if we need to revisit those a second time.
All right. Yeah.
So, you know, like basically from education that certain grades, certain times of the year tend to be harder on children. So like the second grade year for kids in elementary school, when you're coming back from like the holiday season, it's kind of, you're going into the third part of your quarter, you've learned stuff, you've had breaks, so kids fall behind. What is the capture for that in terms of looking like, are you putting more padding in? Is there thought to put more padding in those certain grades and those transitioning eras where you see like even your typical child who might be a tier 1 now fall to a tier 3 because there was a break, or it's the fact that it's no longer the information that they know, it's the new information that's coming out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think that's where the coordination on the individual classroom teacher level comes into play with the school-wide level as well. So there are in addition to the meetings that take place for individual students, there's also the school-wide MTSS team, so they can take a closer look at various trends. There's also, the teams, the departments have meetings. As far as after breaks, that's where we would probably want to try to help inform our teachers on what to look out for. And then also, I would say that when it comes to the changes in curriculum, like when students go from learning to read to reading to learn, that is a point that we would definitely be taking a close look at.
One of the other things that we're doing in alignment with this, and again, it's just got to be a slow, consistent process. I just can't like come in and say, woof. I've mentioned this in our notes, is that we're trying to get a curriculum mapping program, Atlas Rubicon, where any parent can see anything that we're teaching at any time. So grade 1 skills, units, grade 2, grade 3. The vertical will help us on the summer slide, and consistency on what skills should, and that will help us really a lot in analyzing and doing exactly what you're saying, because we'll see different times based on the curriculum that's being taught. But again, it's in different places right now, and it really needs to be sort of aligned, and we're starting that process in April and in the summer, and hopefully we'll start to, get some core instruction in there, so anybody gets here.
And I think that shared information and access to the information is going to go very well.
But coming back to Megan's point, once we have normed data, and yeah, we have about 2 minutes left, and I do want to get to you. I have not forgotten. Once we have normed data, it's not just that we can see if a particular student is in trouble. We can start to ask questions like, are there times of the year when more students fall in, raise to tier 2
Or
or
if
tier
there's a
3?
particular classroom or
That's right.
staff member that's struggling with a certain area with the children within their class, then does that relate to PD?
Yeah.
With that staff member to help enrich them or get them supports to make sure that that's no longer.
Yeah, that's remediated. So I think that's where our conversations with the principals
I
is
think
going
that's
to.
exactly what you'll start revealing when we
Yeah.
start having those conversations and seeing, okay, how did all these MBA classes do? And we can
Right, are there
by
any hot
teacher.
spots?
But those, and then the focus of our conversations are not reactive problem solving.
Right.
It's that, and we're here about students and learning and teaching. And so physically putting those meetings on the calendar is really, really.
Yeah,
I
so in the
love
interest
that.
of
We have
time,
to be
we
out there.
do have to be out there in 2 minutes. We have one more question. Keep it
I
quick, I'm
just
sorry.
be quick. So it's just as a whole, it's MTSS. I've been to numerous meetings about this from here to the Bronx, basically. And I was kind of surprised to see it on the special education plan because, although there's so much support and things and initiatives that they do for our special education students, I've never been to a special education meeting with just MTSS. Like, do you do that as a whole, or do you kind of, like, you work together?
Well, that's where that's why we have
together.
both.
Okay.
And one of the
Yeah.
things we've discussed is how can we not have an education assessment?
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
How
Yeah,
can we
I mean,
not-
I
And it's not the structure's not there right
Yeah.
now, it used to be,
Yes.
but it's not, and
Yes.
it's so important,
Yes.
because I should be bringing this to you in
Right, right.
conjunction
I
with.
just didn't, I thought it was great.
Right.
I just, I've
Yes.
never been to a meeting with this much information
Awesome.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
Especially for-
positivity, honestly, in Carmel. Like seeing all
Yep.
this and being able to bring it back to our parents is
With this-
great for our meeting.
And then think about it, so for someone who has not been classified,
Mhm.
we're not quite sure. We try these interventions, and if these don't work,
Mhm.
well, let's not just jump in. There's some young men and women, you
Right.
begin to work with them, and you can see pretty quickly that they do have some needs that need immediate addressing. But more often than not, let's try some things first, and then we'll move forward.
Right, and then there's data, there's the stuff that needs to be there.
This is gonna be a topic again next month?
Yeah, we're gonna look specifically at sort of the aggregate data,
Ladies,
how many
very
people.
apologies.
Yes, don't
I just don't wanna lose sight of some of the other things that are very
Yes.
specific to special ed.
Yeah, so we're bringing it back to Jim next month as well, and very interesting. Reach out to me, let's talk more about what you guys would like to see.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
That is.